Jansen itutemak TR Wheatley Nisagasun Opasquac Uche Tawau. Welcome to Friday's edition of APTN National News. Earlier this week, Ombudsman Paul Dube visited Neskantaga First Nation, located 450 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. The visit came at the request of Chief Gary Quises to witness his community's hardships firsthand. The chief criticized Ontario's Premier Doug Ford and the Carney government for pushing forward with the mineral-rich Ring of Fire and leaving his community's needs in limbo. Neskantaga has the longest boil water advisory in Canadian history. Failing infrastructure and its health services are in crisis. Following his visit, Ombudsman Dube describes the conditions as deplorable and urges the provincial and federal governments to step up.
I mean, we're hearing from federal and provincial governments these days that they want to cut red tape. Well, I'm urging them to cut the red tape that prevents the supply of clean drinking water. You know, cut the red tape that gets in the way of funding for schools. Cut the red tape that's getting in the way of funding a nursing center and a medical center remotely. And I think it's in everyone's we don't just have a duty, but it's in everyone's interest to contribute to reconciliation in this way, because when you're patching things up or fixing problems, it's even more expensive to do it that way than just build something that's fit for purpose and that works well.
Former Forestry Minister for the Quebec government, Metis Blanchette Vezina, has left the provincial coalition Avenir Quebec government. Blanchette Vezina is known for proposing Bill 97 earlier this year. This is a law which intends to modernize Quebec's forestry industry, resulting in protests from First Nations across the country, including blocking logging trucks and sending eviction notices to logging companies. Blanchette Vezina was ousted as minister last week during the Cox cabinet reshuffle. She says her decision to resign is not from losing her position as minister, but stems from losing confidence in Premier Francois Legault, including over Bill 97. She publicly stated Legault should reflect on the possibility of stepping down as party leader. She will continue to serve as member of the National Assembly for Rimouski. Blanchette Vezina did not respond to APTN News requests for an interview. 2 lawsuits have been settled against the Yukon government and social services nonprofit Connective over deaths at the Whitehorse Emergency Shelter. Here's Sarah Connors with the details.
Miranda Tija Charlie's family describes her as a caring person and a sports enthusiast. But the 34-year-old Vuntut-Gwitchin citizen's life was cut short when she died from a drug overdose at the Whitehorse Emergency Shelter in January 2022. The shelter was operated by the Yukon government at the time of her death.
My life has changed overnight, and I've never been the same ever since.
Tija Charlie's mother filed a lawsuit against the government late last year. At the same time, the estate of Darla Skookum, a Little Salmon Carmack citizen who died at the shelter in April 2023, also filed a lawsuit against the government, as well as the shelter's current operator, nonprofit organization Connective. Both suits allege the shelter operators were negligent in the women's deaths and failed to uphold a duty of care to keep shelter guests safe. The government and Connective have now settled both lawsuits out of court, the terms of which are confidential.
I can't say that with the tool that we had, which is the court system, both of my clients feel that we used the tool to the greatest extent that we could. And there was really no reason to proceed further.
Tija says while nothing will bring her daughter back, she believes sharing her story can help raise awareness.
I wouldn't want anyone to go through the grief that I'm living through every day.
The government and Connective say they're pleased a resolution has been reached, but can't comment on specifics. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
In the Northwest Territories, a self-government agreement has been signed ending 20 years of negotiations. On September 18th, Sherry Hodgson, president of the Kli-Gotlene government, Rebecca Attlee, Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, and R.J. Simpson, Premier of the Northwest Territories, signed the agreement. This comes after community members voted to ratify the deal in March of this year. The agreement still has to be voted on and passed as territorial and federal legislation to make it legally binding. An annual march against sexual violence took place in Yellowknife on Thursday evening.
We want safe community. When do we want it? Now. When do we want safe?
Crowds gathered at the Sambake Park for the annual Take Back the Night March, a global movement against sexual violence dating back to the 70s. The night started with an opening prayer followed by testimonies from speakers, ending with the march through downtown. According to a Stats Canada survey from 2020, 50% of Indigenous women and 48% of Indigenous men across Canada's territories had been sexually assaulted by the age of 15. Jerry Sharp, a local Inuk artist and one of the night's speakers, shared her thoughts on the roots of sexual violence.
It's the stigma that comes along with colonization, that we are less than. And because we are less than, we can be used as victims, and that is not the case. We are all people. And because we are all people, in absolutely no way, shape, or form, does this mean that as an Indigenous woman, do I entitle you to use me for your own gratification?
Yellowknife RCMP are seeking the public's assistance in locating a wanted individual. 28-year-old Adrian Sangres has a warrant out for his arrest for several counts of failure to comply with a release order and assault with a weapon in relation to an incident in August. Sangres has 15 charges before the courts, including assaults, impaired driving, and pointing a firearm. Those who know his whereabouts are asked to not approach him and to contact their local RCMP detachment or Crime Stoppers at p3tips.com. Continuing in the Northwest Territories, a traffic stop has led to arrests and charges after suspected illegal drugs and an unauthorized handgun were found. On September 11th, RCMP stopped a vehicle in Hay River. Officers found 2 passengers with outstanding arrest warrants, and a third was found violating probation conditions. All 3 were arrested. A further search found a 9mm handgun, a quantity of cash, and about 7.9 grams of suspected fentanyl. Yahya Jabril Mohammed of Alberta and Trixie Fruin of Hay River were charged with unauthorized possession of a firearm. Mohammed was also charged with possession of a controlled substance for the purpose of trafficking. Both were remanded into custody. The third person arrested for the outstanding warrant was released on a promise to appear. Before we head to break, our Yellowknife video journalist Bruce Dela Cruz tells us what he's working on for APTN's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
Hi there. The North Slave Métis Alliance in Yellowknife is holding their first gathering for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Stay tuned as I sit down with Alliance members for their perspective on truth and reconciliation. That story only on APTN National News.
Pitigwe. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced the first 5 projects considered for fast-tracking last week, along with the 11 names listed on the Indigenous Advisory Council for the Major Projects Office. On that list is Member 2 First Nation Chief Terry Paul. Though Nova Scotia is not included in the first 5 proposals, Indigenous communities in Atlantic Canada could potentially partner in future economic developments. Chief Terry Paul spoke with our Dennis Ward.
Chief Terry Paul, great to have you with us as always. First off, do you think Indigenous communities were properly consulted prior to the Carney government announcing the 5 projects?
No, I don't. And I said as much when we had our summit with the Prime Minister last month.
What are you hoping the proposed wind farm projects in the Atlantic region could mean for economic development out there?
It's a major undertaking, and I most certainly want to be to ensure that our people, are are a major part of development after our consultations with them, and that we have a clear opportunity to be part of the benefits that are to be had from the projects.
Of course, you were named to the Indigenous Advisory Council. I wasn't surprised to see your name on there, given your contributions to economic development over the years. So what are you hoping to contribute to the Advisory Council?
Well, really is to provide guidance on how the major projects can go forward in a way that the government and the governments, both federal and provincial, respect Indigenous rights, ensure that the environment is very heavily considered and protected. And the benefits, a lot of the benefits should go to the community well-being of our Indigenous communities.
Respecting rights and those types of things, when you consider that the Mi'kmaq land protectors right now are taking action on Hunter's Mountain against resource extraction and energy projects, do you have concerns people could react the same way to future projects?
Well, we most certainly respect people's right to protest on what is happening in our territory, and it's it brings out the fact that we do have rights in this province and the rest of Mi'kmaq, and that the governments, the federal government, the provincial government in particular, needs to recognize and respect those rights, and we need to have a table that addresses the rights that we have. And we want to work with the governments. We're not opposed to development, but we want to make sure that the environment is very well respected, and that our Indigenous rights and our treaty rights are recognized and respected, and also that action should be taken, to be able for us to realize that, and done in a way that is respectful on both sides.
Chief Terry Paul, we'll leave it there, but appreciate you joining us, and good luck in your role on the council.
Thank you very much.
The 4th annual Youth Empowerment Gathering started this year's Truth and Reconciliation Week at the Scotiabank Centre in Halifax with students from across the Atlantic region. APTN video journalist Angel Moore reports.
Over 3,000 students from grades 7 to 12 attended The Gifts We Carry, an event marking the beginning of Truth and Reconciliation Week by the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. Students heard truths about residential schools and celebrated their culture through music and dance. Camden Maloney is 17 years old and is representing her community as the 2025 Miss Sebaganagati.
I feel like this is a very important topic to be talked about in schools because it brings awareness to the residential school survivors and the children that never made it home. And it hits deep to home because we had a residential school in Shubenacadie.
The Shubenacadie Indian Residential School was located in Shubenacadie, Nova Scotia, next to the Sebaganagati First Nation, the only residential school in the Maritimes operated by the Catholic Church. It closed in 1967. Doreen Bernard is a survivor and is a member of the Survivor Circle of the NCTR. She helped carry the memorial cloth of the names over 4,000 children who died in residential schools. Bernard says students are learning the history and impacts of the residential school system.
And they'll carry our stories as well. They'll carry our stories of the survivors into the future these children, these youth here are the first ones. I feel like they're the first generation to really get this education and embrace it and know us and meet us and feel what we feel and know from their heart that we are there for them.
The event included on-stage dialogue with elders. Kayla Johnston is the Director of Education at the NCTR.
What has been a problem in the past is that students, folks overall, haven't been educated about the legacy and history of the residential school system. With this, they'll get to have that information and use that as they enter roles into the future, keeping in mind the principles as well as core values that we wish them to enshrine.
Maloney hopes students learned more about the history of residential schools and Mi'kmaq culture. She encourages them to speak to survivors.
That it's very important to go visit somebody from a Mi'kmaq community so they can really learn more about what happened to our elders.
Next year's event is set to be held in Alberta. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Japutuk, also known as Halifax.
4 people elected to the Metis Nation Saskatchewan took their oaths of office Friday at a special swearing-in ceremony. 2 of them were waiting for a recount, while the other 2 were previously denied entry to the original swearing-in ceremony in June. Vice President Michelle Leclerc and Treasurer Jeremy Denomi were sworn in after an official recount of the May 14th election was completed and showed they won their positions. Regional Representatives Wendy Gervais and Sherry McLennan were also sworn in. They were also elected on May 24th, but were barred from entering the original swearing-in ceremony after a dispute with an MNS employee. After all 4 took their oaths, MNS announced that regular operations will resume Monday, September 22nd. Time for a quick break here. We have a story about the art of fish tanning when we come back. Cheskwa. Wow, welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. New best friends forever, forever, ever. Muskwa, the Chow Chow, and Velcro, the Cocker Spaniel, meet for the first time and then had a great play date. Thanks, Sandra, for sharing. Send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, St. John's 14, Fredericton 19, Kuujjuaq 7, Nain 5, Chibougamau 12, Quebec City 16, North Bay 18, Sault Ste. Marie 17, Big Trout Lake 10, Sulakot 14, Puckatawagan 21, Norway House 16, Barons River 16, Brandon 21, North Battleford 27, Regina 24, Uranium City 21, La Ronge 18. Moving west, Fort Chipewyan 22, Fort McMurray 26, Edmonton 26, Lethbridge 31, Kamloops 28, Campbell River 17, Dease Lake 14, Smithers also 14, and up north, Old Crow 2, Mayo 6, Norman Wells 14, Fort Simpson 20, Tuktoyaktuk 2, Colville Lake 12, Cambridge Bay 10, Chesterfield 9, Resolute 0, Iqaluit 6 degrees. There's a fish tanning revival that's happening. That's according to a professional Beaver Cree fish tanner who resides in Whitehorse, Yukon. Cheryl McLean has been teaching the skill for the past 4 years, and she's taking the skill from the Yukon to Central Ontario. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
These fish skins are in the early stages of becoming leather. It's a traditional practice. Cheryl McLean was first introduced to it 8 years ago.
I felt like I'd come home. The first time I touched a piece of tea-tanned leather, I felt like I knew it. I've done this, I know this. And I'm even getting just shivers even talking about it. And so I think even though most people don't remember fish leather anymore or fish tanning, I believe we have it in our ancestral memory, our blood memory, our DNA.
Fish tanning is an old skill still practiced in the Yukon by some. The leather has many uses.
You can make a million things. Anything that you would use leather or moose hide for, you can use fish hide for. So I've personally done a lot of jewelry, like earrings, card holders, wallets, all out of fish leather, knife sheaths.
After mastering many tanning classes, McLean began teaching the skill. She's traveled to Hiawatha First Nation in central Ontario to share her knowledge. It's day 3 of the 6-day class. Donna Jacobs is a community healing and wellness worker from Curve Lake First Nation. She's loving the workshop. She says it's an important skill to learn.
I thought it'd be a great opportunity to, not only for myself, but to bring this information to my community. I'd like to put on a few workshops with the fish skins I have at home.
McLean says it's about sharing and learning from each other.
So we're working with the fish they get here, so we've done pickerel and bass and crappie and lake trout and rainbow trout. Yeah, so it's been pretty cool that just to try. So it's been a huge learning curve for me too here, because you scale the pickerel a little bit differently. I've learned a lot, and then these folks really like to push on the experimentation with colors, with tanning methods, with different dyes.
The workshop wraps up on Friday. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Hiawatha First Nation.
Awesome story. And host of our French broadcast Nouvelles Nationales, Kim Sullivan, spent the day at the McGill John Abbott powwow near Montreal, but she still had time to put together a show for tonight. What can we expect when we tune in at 6:30 Eastern, Kim?
Hey, TR. Tonight we tackle the start of the CRTC's public hearing as a Quebec Indigenous group demands that 5% of music aired on Canadian radios be Indigenous. We introduce you to a group of midwifery students bringing birth back to the land. We speak with an artist whose art was stolen and reproduced on a website. And we have not one, but 3 premieres in the arts and culture scene that are taking place in Quebec right now. So you'll discover them tonight at 6:30 Eastern.
And that's your APTN National News for this Friday, September 19th. Join us again next week for our continuing coverage of changemakers who are answering the TRC's 94 calls to action leading up to the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I'm TR Wheatley. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. Kristen Adjakote is back in this seat on Monday. Until then, from all of us at APTN to all of you, Agase, Gitam, Kikawapa Mitinano.